The reading for today is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 8, verses 43 through 48. Listen. A woman was there who had been bleeding for 12 years. She had spent her entire livelihood on doctors, but no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the hem of his clothes, and at once her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When everyone denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowds are surrounding you and pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." When the woman saw that she couldn't escape notice, she came trembling and fell before Jesus. In front of everyone, she explained why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. "Daughter, your faith has healed you," Jesus said. "Go in peace." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Several years ago, when I was serving as district superintendent, I found out about a gathering of retired United Methodist pastors. They would get together about once a month for a simple lunch, and then they would share with one another. Well, one day I was invited to be with them, and I showed up with my sack lunch, and I took my place at the table. We all got out our sandwiches, and we began conversation. Early on, one of the retired pastors looked at me and said, "Now, Teresa, we always begin with the organ report." The organ report, I thought. You see, I've been around church all my life, and when I hear the word organ, all I can think about is the musical instrument. We here at University UMC are so blessed to have our own Unju, an organist who is fabulous and blesses us with music. So with thoughts of organ music in my mind, I wrinkled my nose and I said, "Organ report?" And they laughed, and they went on to explain that one by one, they would go around the room and give a health update about how their organs were doing, their illnesses, whether there had been a recent diagnosis, if there was an upcoming surgery. It was a tender time. It happens to most all of us at some point or another, doesn't it? We find ourselves one day with this body that doesn't move as it used to, or it doesn't feel like it once did. Health concerns are serious business. Many of you worshiping online, I know that you know that all too well. Sometimes there's an injury or an accident, and you might experience excruciating pain or be left with a body that doesn't function and move around like it once did. Or maybe there's a diagnosis, whether your own or the diagnosis of a loved one, and you're on a roller coaster of emotions as you look to the future with a mixture of fear and deep sadness. It is true that illness and disease do not discriminate based on age, but it is also true that the older we get and the older our family and friends become, the more numerous and the more complex our body issues seem to be. Well, in Luke's gospel today, we hear of a woman who is living with her own bodily concerns. She's been bleeding for 12 long years. She's been to every doctor in town. She's spent her life's savings trying to get better. She is exhausted, and still she suffers. No relief to be found. I wonder if some of you might feel similarly. She one day finds herself in a crowd, and in that crowd is this man named Jesus that she's heard about, and she reaches out to him. Perhaps her reaching out is an act of faith. Perhaps it's an act of desperation, and maybe it's a mixture of both. But you know what happens next. We are told that she is healed. We are told that Jesus himself in his own body felt a power leave him as she touched him. In part, I think the lesson here is quite simple. It's that Jesus has a body, and we have a body, and the body is of sacred worth. Now, I don't know why this is so hard for us to truly believe as Christians. After all, we are the ones who claim to believe in this thing called the incarnation, where we say that the God of all creation loved us so much that God, through Jesus, became one of us, experienced everything that we as humans go through, including what it means to have a body. It amazes me to think that long before Jesus ever fed his disciples, he himself as an infant was fed by his own mother. Bodies are important. They feed and they are fed. They're sacred. Somehow though, we are really uncomfortable talking about bodies, especially in church perhaps, and especially when the lesson is about a woman who is bleeding. Well, the body is a gift, but if we can be honest, it can also be a pain at times, can't it? As we continue our Sundays at the Cinema sermon series, the movie I want us to look at today is a movie entitled Turning Red. Turning Red is a coming-of-age story about a girl named Mi. Mi is a Chinese-Canadian girl who experiences both the elation and the confusion of entering adolescence. She has great friends. She has her first crush on a boy. She keeps a diary. Her mom finds the diary. I bet you know where this is going. She and her mom fight and tangle, and she has strong, enormous feelings and emotions. And whenever Mi is feeling her big feelings, she turns into a red panda. And if that sounds dramatic, that's the point. You see, the big fluffy red panda is the very manifestation, the embodiment of all the big things that Mi is going through. Some of us through the years have grown up receiving messages that say we should control our emotions. But Mi counters that thought by becoming a big red panda. At one point, she says this. She says, we've all got a messy, loud, weird part of ourselves hidden away, and a lot of us never let it out. I wonder if some of you can identify. Do you ever feel like you're going through something big and you just never let it out? So many lessons here. For starters, we need to remember that feelings and emotions are not the enemy. They affect us, for sure, but they can negatively affect us when we push them down or try to avoid them or be in denial of them. It can hurt us psychologically, but it can even impact us physically when we avoid our feelings, as we learn more about the mind-body connection. Good therapists are indeed a gift to our society, and we are fortunate to have many wonderful counselors and social workers here at University UMC. We're grateful for you, and we are praying for you. In this turbulent times, we pray for our health professionals, including therapists and our teachers. It's a hard time to be in those professions. Whether we are going through something difficult physically or emotionally, the woman in Luke's gospel today reminds us that we can take all of that to Jesus. And that when we do take all of what we are going through, body, mind, and spirit, to Jesus, when we take it to Jesus, Jesus cares and Jesus sees. Jesus knows all of what we're going through. Sometimes when we go to Jesus, miraculously, a cure happens. Sometimes when we go to a medical professional, they can make things better. But we also know that sometimes a cure doesn't happen. Instead, sometimes what takes place is a different kind of healing as we come to some sort of inner peace about how our body is shifting and changing. Jesus tells us that all bodies are sacred. Our society, on the other hand, tells us all kinds of things about how our bodies are supposed to look. Again, Jesus says all bodies are sacred. Even bodies that are dealing with health issues, bodies that are aging, bodies that have cancer, bodies that are in a wheelchair, bodies that are amputated, bodies that are going through puberty, bodies are sacred. I watched the movie Turning Red with my own daughter, who is coming of age and going through adolescence, and watching it with her was sacred. I'm proud that here at University UMC, because of your tithes and offerings and because of volunteers and people like Pastor Heather, we offer this course called Our Whole Lives, also known as OWL. OWL is a program for children to learn about the gift of having a body, to learn what changes are taking place or will likely take place in the future, how to treat ourselves and one another with respect. Here's the thing about this movie, which is also about respect. You see, Me has these great aunts who are prim and proper, and quite frankly, they're kind of scary. The aunts, they never became red pandas, but only because they suppressed their big emotions and the truth of who they are, only because they controlled their feelings. In a moving turn of events in this movie, it is the young Me who inspires her aunts to continue their own journey of discovering their authentic self, to become whole, which is what the woman who touched Jesus in the scriptures was searching for: healing and wholeness. The lesson in Luke's gospel is often called the healing on the way to a healing. Because you see, another important part of this story is that there's a counter story taking place on either side of this woman who was healed by Jesus. Jesus has just been told verses earlier that there is a girl, Jairus' daughter, who has fallen ill. Not only that, she has actually died, and people are wanting Jesus to hurry to her and to resurrect her. So Jesus makes his way to the child. He's on his way to Jairus' house when a crowd forms around him. And that's where this woman finds Jesus and reaches out to him. Now, it's not surprising that some in the crowd might want to push the woman aside, saying she's a distraction, she's slowing Jesus down, he has other business to take care of. But Jesus does notice this woman. He takes time to tend to her, and then he moves on, and verses later, Jairus' daughter is healed. A healing on the way to another healing. A reminder of our interdependence when it comes to our own search for wholeness. We cannot be free until all are free. I love the story in Luke's gospel, the way that it links the healing of a young girl to the healing of likely a middle-aged woman, just as Me was a part of her great aunt's healing journey. In a similar way, Me learns from her ancestors, from the elders, but they also learn from her. In yet another way, this is lived out in my own home as I live and learn from my daughter. She's away on a youth mission trip this Sunday, but she gave me the permission to tell this story. You see, last year in school, Claire made some new friends, and one of her new friends I'll call Benny. Claire talked about this friend, and one day I'm picking Claire up from school and she's walking with somebody, and when she gets in the car, she kind of gestures and says, "That's Benny." "Oh," I said, "well, how did you meet her? Do you have some classes together?" Claire matter-of-factly said, "We have PE together, and Mom, Benny goes by they." "Oh," I said, "got it." Days passed and I saw Benny when picking up Claire from school. On the way home, I said, "So I don't know Benny's parents, but maybe there's some way for us to meet because it'd be great to invite her to your birthday party or something." Once again, Claire lovingly corrected me, matter-of-factly and mostly patient, with only a hint of an eye roll. Mom, Benny's pronouns are they. The younger is teaching the older. We cannot be free until all are free. And the gift of a body is sacred. All bodies. Amen.